once I had gotten to around the end of high school, I had been in drugs for so long. The suffering and all the depression, the anger, it became so commonplace to me that I didn't care anymore. I started to really become an evil person, a very evil person.
God bless you, Luis.
God bless you, Marcos.
How you doing?
Doing good, bro.
Doing good? All right, yeah. Thank you for coming. Again, just it's great to have you here to be able to do this testimony. That you'll be sharing your testimony with us, and hopefully it'll be a great blessing for not only you, but like the church and everybody.
Yeah.
But let's go ahead and get started.
All right.
So, as a first question that we want to ask you to start this testimony is, how was your life before Christ?
Well, my life before Christ, it was a very, very depressing life. I had a very sad life. I was very lonely all the time, actually, even in my own family. Was very, I can't say neglected necessarily, but overlooked a lot. And it was a very deep sadness, very deep loneliness I carried for a very large portion of my life, even after I accepted Christ. It's very hard to deal with, but I had a lot of anger issues. And it was always very difficult for me to find people to connect with. I found it very difficult to just branch out. I always felt stifled. I always felt like minimized. And I'm talking a lot about emotions, my life growing up, I did go through a lot of things, with people and stuff, but more than anything, I felt like personally, it was a lot of emotional stuff that I went through. Just without Christ, I was everywhere. I had so much confusion, so much chaos. Nothing ever felt right. Even if I did feel happy or content in the moment, it was always something missing. I could never, ever fulfill just the most basic, fundamental, deep desires that we have as human beings. Just, even though I could be happy or content in a moment, I'd always end up going back to a place of loneliness. I'd always go back to a place of anger, depression. And it was very hard for me to move past that. It's very hard for me to even after Christ, like I said, to move past that stage. It was something that was deeply embedded to me.
Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. And now hearing, that story, how just your life before Christ, obviously I assume now, thankfully, you're here and, you've been, someone who's a believer, right?
Yeah.
And could you let us give us some insight into what happened on the day you accepted Christ?
Oh, okay. That day was a great day to start with, right? It was actually around 5th or 6th grade. I don't remember the exact day, but I'll never forget, the encounter. Something to note, very important to note, ever since my mom told me when I was like 3, she came into my room one time, and the reason she came in is just she heard 2 voices, and the only people in the house were me and my mom, and I was talking to somebody. And she came into the room and she asked me, who are you speaking to? And I said, the girl in my closet. And she was like, oh, so what I'm getting to is all my life I've been able to see in the spirit. I've been able to see things other people can't. And that's very important to note, because even before I knew who God was, I had encounters with him before that. Before I had actually accepted him, he had revealed himself to me in my childhood, when I was angry, when I was depressed, when I had all those things that I went through, like emotionally, personally. He would always show himself to me in some way. He'd always reach out to me in some way. And I realized that the day I accepted Christ. When I had accepted Christ, when he encountered me, I was going to a youth group. When he encountered me that day, he kind of like revealed all of that to me. It was like I had this overwhelming like flooding of memories that just started going through my head, playing through my head. And I started remembering all those times that I'd be in my room crying, all those times I was angry and I wondered why I was always so lonely. And I saw God literally in those moments with me. And it was such a profound moment. It was such a profound moment. Even being so young, it was something that touched me so deeply. And, I accepted Christ that day because I knew that God was always with me. And I knew in that moment he was real. I knew in that moment, I had been through, so much agony and seeing things that other people couldn't see. It was another factor to my loneliness. I felt like God was the person that was there for me. I had felt like finally I had somebody to understand me, somebody to accept me, somebody that could stand by me. And not just, saying it, but like he showed me. Even before I knew it, he showed me that. So, something I want to note as well is even though I had accepted Christ that day, I began to walk with Christ at a much later date. I didn't fully begin to walk with him, although I had accepted him. And after that point in my life, at first things were really, they were really, good. They were really good. I knew God was real. I knew that I had, him by my side. As I told you, I could see in the spirit. So it was like I could feel and see things other people couldn't. So I had this way of God revealing himself to me that it was so real, so profound, like that I just couldn't believe that he wasn't real. I couldn't believe that I had too much proof, too much evidence. And although it all started so great, very soon after, I actually turned away from him. Very soon after, I won't even say a year later, I turned away from him and I walked away from the youth group. And I started to go through some very, very deep spiritual warfare. I started to get attacked by demons, so much to the point that my family knew. It was so deep, so rigorous, the torment, the agony, the suffering I go through, that my mom would hear voices. My brothers that to this day don't believe in God would experience night terrors where they saw demons jumping on them from the roof. And my brother one time woke up in the middle of the night screaming. We ran into the room. What happened? He said, this creature jumped on me and it was attacking me in my sleep. And it was something that, for me, as I was growing up, when I had walked away from Christ after knowing he was so real and all those things started happening, I felt so targeted because I still knew God was real, but I just wasn't going to him. And that spiritual warfare that I went through, I can say this, the devil knows, who belongs to God. And once you've accepted him, there's something different about you. The light that God has, it's upon you. And I know that became one of the biggest reasons why he targeted me so often. And it even got to the point where I at one point went back to the youth group because I had nothing else to do. I didn't know what to do. And I received a prayer because I was crying out for help. I was crying out for help again. And when my youth leader started to pray for me, I had this really intense vision. And this is the only time that I've ever seen something this terrible in my life. A horde, like a legion, an actual legion of demons come into that church, and they were filling my mind with the worst thoughts, the worst things. They were literally revealing themselves to me. They were showing me what they looked like. And they were showing me, like, I don't want to go into detail, but just really terrible things, and causing me horror, fright, just trying to do anything they could to get me away from God. They were mad that I was in that church. They were mad that I was receiving prayer. So that was around middle school at this point. And I did kind of, bounce back and forth with God. When I needed him, I'd go to him. And once I felt fine, I'd just walk away. I would begin to read my Bible because, oh God, I want to be close to you. Oh God, I want to, really, I just wanted to feel better. And once I felt like I got what I wanted, I'd walk away then. And I did that consistently for a very long time. And, the suffering, the torment never went away. All that stuff just never went away. And at one point I got caught in vices. And this part of my testimony, a lot of people know, I got involved in drugs. I got involved in, lifestyle of just depravity. I got really far from God, but it was around that time when God started to speak to me again, very audibly, very noticeably. I knew that I had accepted Christ. And at that point I had identified as a Christian in my life. And although I knew that I wasn't walking how I should have been, even though I knew I wasn't following him, I also knew that I had accepted Christ. So for me, that was like, okay, well, I'm Christian then. I accepted him. I'm going to heaven, right? And that was one of the reasons I never felt like I should go back to God. Why does it matter? If I have him, then, his grace will cover me when I go smoke. His grace will cover me when I rebel against my parents and leave at night. His grace will cover me. I'll be fine. It doesn't matter if I cuss. It doesn't matter if I go out and do whatever I want in school. It doesn't matter if I just stop caring. It doesn't matter. As long as, I know that I have God, I'm going to heaven. That was good enough for me. And when he began to speak to me, it was in high school at this point. He started telling me, like, you have a choice. You have a choice. You can come to me now and I'll take care of you. And he told me there was a sacrifice, there was a cost in following him. I had to leave all my friends because I had sought so much comfort away from all the suffering, the depression, the anger that I was going through, that I just turned to the world and I found the wrong friends, the wrong crowd to, get with. And so God told me, if you're going to follow me, you're going to come with me, you're going to have to let go of all those things. Mm-hmm. And if you don't, and it was kind of open-ended. He didn't really, I knew what it was. God was telling me, like, if you don't come to me now, there's going to be consequences. I knew that. And I told God, you know what, God, this is too hard for me. I don't want to let go of all the friends. I tried. I was like, I don't want to do it. I'll follow you after high school is done. I told him that. And his spirit left me. His spirit left me. I had grieved the Holy Spirit to a point where I didn't feel his presence anymore. And I started relishing in my sin. I started enjoying my lifestyle of sin. I started enjoying rebellion. I started priding myself in how well I could lie. I started priding myself in, how evil I could get, how wicked I could get, how far I could cross over that boundary, that line. And you can name it, whatever boundary, whatever line I would love and relish in the idea of just going past it. I loved it. I was very all or nothing. And once I had gotten to around the end of high school, I had been in drugs for so long. The suffering and all the depression, the anger, it became so commonplace to me that I didn't care anymore. I started to really become an evil person, a very evil person. Deeply, I was so corrupted, so wicked. I didn't care about anything. I had a complete lack of emotions. And I loved manipulating people. It was the only thing that gave me joy at that point in my life, because it was nothing else. And God started, telling me, hey, he reminded me. I didn't remember, but he reminded me. You told me, by the end of high school, once you had already gone through all this world stuff, you'll come to me. So here I am because you told me. And I was like, nah, I'm good. I believe in you and that's enough, but I want to keep doing this stuff. And he kept giving me that conviction. He kept giving that conviction for months. I was a senior. He kept giving me that conviction for months and months and months through my senior years. You told me, and I'm here. And I just kept smoking. And the more he convicted me, the further I tried to run. So I just got further and further into drugs, and just doing anything I could to run away. It wasn't even about the drugs. It was just, as long as I could escape God, his presence, I just didn't want to be with him anymore. I didn't care. I would rather enjoy this lifestyle because I was already so deep. I was in bondage. Eventually I hit a point where the drugs that I was using so many, I was overdosing consistently, kept overdosing. And it was in those times where God, I had the most intense encounters with God in my life. They define me now and why it is that I actually began to follow Christ as opposed to just accepting him. It was those encounters when I had overdosed that he showed me his mercy. He showed me his faithfulness. He showed me his love. And just like when I had accepted him, he would bring back this flood of memories of how he was with me even through my sin. And that was what really brought me to my knees and understanding I can't just accept Christ. I need to follow him, because I knew in that moment God revealed to me my sin. I'm not going to heaven. That little comfort that I had that kept me justifying my sin, I'm not going to heaven. His grace won't cover me. I've actually turned so far from God. I have no relationship with him. I've ignored him for so long. And that made me realize, when he saved me from those overdoses, it made it so clear. I had to follow him. So though I accepted Christ, early on, I was a prodigal for a very long time. And I didn't really start following Christ up until around 2-3 years ago, when I actually, not even a year later, I came here. Mm-hmm. And God led me to this church. That's a whole other testimony, but yeah.
All right. Yeah. That's good to hear then that you, your heart, you could really say now that like it's changed, right? Mm-hmm. And like, just like the Bible talks about, that you really essentially have a life where you're born again, and where you realize that all the things that were wrong in the past, mm-hmm. Must be only, fulfilled by God's promise, by the sacrifice that he did. That's just the only way. Yeah. So yeah, I'm happy to hear about that. And then, Lord God. So I guess as another question, now you as a Christian, now you as a believer, as mm-hmm. a follower of Christ, what have you been doing to continue to grow spiritually?
So, when I reaccepted, the full walk of Christ, the first thing that I started doing was fervent prayer. Mm-hmm. And now I've been through a lot. I've been through a lot of fervent prayer. I've been, reading my Bible. The one thing that sticks out to me is just surrender. And God wants his people to surrender. So often we stifle his spirit, even in church, and we don't even realize it because we don't surrender. Mm-hmm. A lot of people have a lot of pride. And they don't even realize it sometimes. They just get used to being comfortable or having their own way. They don't realize that it's their pride. I feel like the one thing that has helped me consistently in my walk with Christ is surrendering again and again. I was going to say that there was a point where when I had began following God, I was being spiritually attacked again. And it was intense, but it was during those times that God would tell me, hey, pray. Hey, read your word. I didn't want to do it though. I didn't want to do it at all. It was hard. It was very hard. So it cost me, but I did it. And I was surrendering. And when I would surrender, I'd feel the presence of God like crazy. Like you couldn't believe. Like those days that we have services, here, and we're praising and worshiping, we just feel the presence of God. God would fill my room. He would fill my room, and simply surrendering and saying, I don't choose my way, I choose your way. And even though it cost me, that's what's been helping me to continue to grow in Christ. Even when I don't want to read the Bible, or I find it hard to, or I don't find time in my day, I don't give an option. Even if it costs me like my nights, sometimes I'll stay up and I'll surrender that time and say, God, this is your time. This is your time. And it keeps it's something that it helps you grow in every area, every aspect of your Christian life. Because when you surrender to God, it's not just, oh God, I surrender, and it's vague, it's general. When you surrender, you're surrendering specific things. You're surrendering your emotions, you're surrendering your thoughts, your mind, you're surrendering your temple, even what you eat, what you're doing with your day. You're surrendering so many things. It leads you to read the word. It leads you to pray. It leads you to change who you are and the way that you think. Because when you're surrendering what you think, and you instead say, God, I have the mind of Christ, and you start declaring that over yourself, God will begin to move in you. The more that you pour yourself out and you surrender what you thought was right, he'll begin to show you, correct you, and teach you how to live your life in his righteousness, in his will. That's the one thing that I'd say has helped me grow.
All right. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I would say a lot of times I've seen that, in my life too, how really the surrendering, the pride, and like humbleness, right? It's all like this huge circle that is all part of acknowledging. And I think it has to do a lot with the first commandment, just recognizing that, you're not God. You must let God be the God in your life.
Exactly.
And so I guess like as something to kind of wrap up here, is there anything that you would like to say to whoever will be watching, you know, especially the brothers from and sisters from this church, like to encourage them in their spiritual walk?
Never lose hope. Don't lose faith. It's really easy, even though you know the presence of God, even though you can have blessings all around you, even though you can have everything given to you in your life that will help you move forward. Don't lose faith. Even though you can have all the blessings in the world, it's still easy to lose sight on God. A lot of people come to church and they just make it that. They just come to church, but they lose sight and they lose faith that they're coming for God. They lose that relationship. I think it's really important to never lose sight of that, to always maintain that really perseverance and looking at Christ and your walk. And I encourage the brothers and sisters here to keep going in their faith, to not give up, to not let somebody speak down to them and tell them they're less than what God says they are, but to really begin to let God mold them and speak to them and to just let him do even miracles. A lot of people doubt, they fear, they're anxious, they think to themselves, what is this person going to tell me? What is this friend? What if they let me go? You know, I say in those times, have faith and let God do what he has to do in your life. That's my encouragement.
All right. Yeah, well then, again, thank you so much, Luis. And hopefully, as we've said, like, this will be a blessing for everybody who watches. And we hope to keep seeing you around church.
Amen. You will.
Amen.
Come on.
All right. God bless you, Luis.
God bless you too, Marta.
Si tú hablas con Dios, las cosas cambiarán. Orando, cualquier